Good morning, everyone. Today is the 8th of October. It's Wednesday morning. Christ says several times, but many that are first shall be last, and the last first. Mark 10:31. You know, he says the same thing in Matthew 19:30. But many there are that are first shall be last, and the last shall be first. And in Matthew 20:16, so the last shall be first, and the first last. For many be called, but few chosen. Luke 13:30. And behold, there are last which shall be first, and there are first which shall be last. You know, the disciples came to him and said, you know, who's going to sit on your right hand? He said, it's not for me to give, but the Father. And he also said, you know, if you want to be first among them, let them be a servant, you know. But in our world, in our society, it's just the opposite, isn't it? It's just the opposite among men. The people that get put on a pedestal and exalted, which we're not supposed to exalt men anyway, but the people that get put on a pedestal are those that come from royal families, those that are born into prestige and wealth and fortune and fame, those who have been to the highest levels of educational universities, those who are considered in society to be the prominent ones. They're the ones that are going to be last. And who are put on the lower rung? Those who are poor, those who work with their hands. You know, my dad was a plumber, and he never got exalted in the church. In fact, they kind of put him down, you know. They considered, even at his memorial service, they called my father cantankerous, just because he didn't go along with their little clique, you know. Good morning, Keziah Christie from India. Glad to have you with us this morning. No, have you ever heard plumbers exalted? You know, my dad started as a ditch digger and worked himself up, finally got his plumber's license, but he started digging ditches. My father was never exalted. And like I say, at his memorial service, they called him cantankerous. You know, just because he didn't go along with their little clique. I remember one time, one of the doctors of theology came over to visit my dad and was trying to get the upper hand of control over my dad. And my dad, he says, how come you haven't been coming to church? My dad says, I'll tell you why I haven't been coming to church. I've got my belly full. I've just about got my belly full of all the lies. He said, what are you talking about? You know? And they had a long discussion. You know, this fella says, you know, God loves you. God loves the world. My dad says, you don't know But God doesn't love everyone in the world. And this doctor of theology says, what are you talking about? He says, my dad says, haven't you ever read the Old Testament? When he told the Israelites to go out and slay all these people, the Hittites, the Jebusites, and he said they told him to kill every one, man, woman, boy, and girl, kill them all. He says, isn't that an interesting way of God demonstrating his love? Well, the guy was just about ready to go at that point. But my point is that my dad was a plumber, but he believed the Bible. He believed the Bible. You know. And he wouldn't put up with lies from anyone, even the doctor, even the president of the school that I went to. He wouldn't put up with it. That's probably why I got a D- in Bible. It was retaliation against my dad. You know. But the point that I'm trying to make today is Christ says that the first shall be last and the last shall be first. I think there's going to be some plumbers that are going to be first over some of these doctors of theology in heaven. So, oh, Larry, how could that be? How could plumbers be over the master's college or the all these doctors of theology down here on the earth that are so looked up to, Well, I believe that's what Christ is conveying to these people. The first shall be last and the last shall be first. Down here, the people that get exalted and put up on a pedestal are people that have influence and money. Lots of money, right? But God doesn't love everyone, because he says very clearly in Romans 9, the children being not yet born, not having done any good or evil, that the purpose of God according to election might stand. Jacob have I loved, Esau have I hated. There's certain people that God hates. Let's just be honest. And no, I don't believe in universal atonement. John 3:16 says, for God so loved the world that whosoever believeth on him should not perish but have everlasting life. Who are the whosoevers that believe on him? The whosoevers are the ones that God has given faith to believe on him, right? And so I believe in election and I believe in reprobation. And most people don't believe that. Most people deny it. Most people refuse to recognize the fact that the children being not yet born, not having done any good or evil, the purpose of God according to election might stand. Well, the first shall be last and the last shall be first. Very interesting. In heaven is going to be an interesting place. Those that were considered low lives down here, I live in a house trailer, and they have a saying for people that live in house trailers: trailer trash, trailer trash. That's all right. They can call me trailer trash. At least I don't have a mortgage payment. I was telling my wife, joking around with my wife the other day, we're glad that we've got our assisted living center paid for. At least we don't have a $6,000 a month assisted living bill. But Christ didn't have a place to lay his head. When he was down here, he came as a suffering servant. The only person that's going to be first and last is Jesus Christ. He says in his word, I am the first, I am the last. Didn't he say that? But in heaven, I believe the last are going to be first and the first are going to be last. Isaiah 48:12. Hearken unto me, O Jacob and Israel, my called. I am he, I am the first, and I also am the last. You know, well, Revelation 1:17. When I saw him, I felt his feet as dead, and he laid his right hand upon me, saying unto me, Fear not, I am the first and the last. Well, people are so concerned about being first down here. They want to be first in line, don't they? They want to be the first to get recognized at the dinners and at the celebrations. They want to get all the awards. They want to look good in men's eyes, right? They want to look good in men's eyes. And, you know, I've often said at graduation at the Bible school that I attended, during their graduation ceremonies, they made sure that the people that had the highest degrees had certain colors of stripes on their robes that they wore down the aisle. You know, if they had a yellow stripe, they had a master's degree. If they had another color stripe, they had a doctor's degree. Isn't that the exaltation of the creature? I think it is. You know? He said the lady that put the pence in the treasury, he said she's given more than all these other people. But people that are put up on a pedestal, I heard the other day that some of these not-for-profit organizations like the, you know, these very popular organizations that get all this money and they're supposed to be doing all this good for people and stuff. Some, you know, six-figure incomes, and yet they're trying to act like they're doing so many great things for everybody.